Hello and welcome to Dentistry to Business, the Dental CEO podcast where data meets strategy and leadership transforms practices. I am Caroline Bell-Mintern, a proud dental clinic owner, creator of cutting-edge dental analytic systems, and a mentor to ambitious dental professionals like you. This is the show where we dive into the metrics and science of building thriving multi-seven-figure and beyond dental practices. Whether you're looking to master analytics, lead with confidence, or scale your clinic without sacrificing quality, you are in the right place. Let's decode the numbers, unlock your potential, and create a legacy practice that you've always dreamed of. Ready to lead the industry? Let's succeed together. Hello and welcome to the first episode of Dentistry to Business. I am your host, Caroline Bell-Mintern, and I am so excited to have you here. Today is going to be a solo episode. I'm excited to introduce myself, get to know you, and really just launch this podcast to be a place for people and entrepreneurs to come and gain some insight and information. Whether you run a dental clinic or you're an entrepreneur, the stress and the outcomes of business in general is always the same. It always has the same sort of background information, systems, tips, tricks, and obviously hiring and sustaining a reasonable and well-rounded team is always the same sort of dynamic. So I'm excited to jump into everything with you. And over the next few weeks, we're going to have guest speakers and have people come in and also co-host with me. So I'm really excited to have that opportunity. But today I figured we would launch things off by talking about hiring. And I get this question a lot, and I have a lot of people ask kind of what the tips and tricks are. HR in most industries right now seems to be the main concern and the main issue that people are running into. So I do feel like some simple tips and tricks for this around hiring is kind of the area that I want to start at. So one of the most common questions that I have asked is, what you ask during an interview, and what are kind of those key components that you look for that really help you understand these candidates and who's going to stand out in your company. So the number one thing that I do could be a little bit different than what you do is I'm asking questions around their goals. So my office in general, we're really big on goal setting. We're big on looking 5 years, 10 years ahead personally about our personal goals, whether it's professional or individual, and we're constantly trying to move the needle. And my philosophy is if we're not elevating ourselves in practice, we are falling behind in the trend. So we really need to stay on top of, the outcoming, new and upcoming technologies, what's branching out into dentistry, making sure that we're staying on top of that cutting edge treatment and offerings for our patients, because ultimately that is going to be the better treatment care plan, in our opinion, for our patients. So I like to know that there are people in our clinic that are already thinking about those things. This isn't necessarily a deal breaker when I hire, but it also shows me kind of who's already on that path. Who are these people that are forward thinkers? They're thinking ahead about themselves, where they want to be. It gives me an idea of like how established they currently are versus where they want to be in the next 5 years. And it also helps me plan around what their career aspirations might be. So if I have somebody that I'm interviewing and they're telling me they want to buy a house in 5 years, and pay down their school debt, that's probably a pretty good indication that these are going to be really reliable team members. I mean, of course, we're gauging things from an interview. Time will tell around whether or not these things are true, but it will show you some of those internal things about their thought process. So if they're wanting to buy a house and pay down their school debt, the chances are they're probably going to be really reliable. They're going to want to work maybe additional extra hours. They're going to be somebody who's a little bit more invested than somebody who says that they're wanting to maybe go into another career, or they're doing this as a stepping stone to get somewhere else. Those people kind of already have one foot out the door. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not amazing people to hire. We want to give people those experiences, especially if you're also looking to close a gap and you're not really sure if this is a long-term permanent fit that you're looking to hire. So there's always placeholder people that we may want to hire, and that's a whole different podcast. But what we're looking for really is consistency to what you are looking for in a hire. So if you're looking for somebody who you want as a long-term fit, you can ask some goal setting questions that are going to align with that. So I do find that that is kind of the number one thing. If people stutter and they have no idea and they're kind of caught off guard. These are probably people who really haven't given a lot of consideration. And what I find is with these types of individuals typically is I have to teach how to goal set. I have to teach them how to proactively be looking ahead. Sometimes it can be harder to have those people engaged into wanting to goal set and understanding how to. So they're not always going to be people that are a complete no as a hire. You just know that there's going to be some additional training that may be required for you and your clinic, depending on what your needs are. So I feel like that's the biggest thing. So it's going to be a situation where you may have to help train people into how to goal set and what that looks like for them. So it's not an immediate no for those candidates, but it does show you kind of where they're at with their thinking and their process, and then you can kind of determine where that aligns in your practice and if this is a suitable fit for you. The other thing that I always tell people to do is do not call the phone number on the references. But first of all, call references. I love phoning phone numbers of past employers that are not placed on a reference, because references these days can be anybody. You don't know who you're talking to in terms of, is it a family? Is it a friend? Is this somebody who truly was a managerial position at an employment establishment? So it could be a colleague that worked there and they're vouching for them. I like to find out from the owner or the manager what exactly this employee was like working there and why the employee no longer works there. So we want to make sure that if you're looking at the resume, and maybe you know some people on there, just do a quick call to them. Say, hey, you're not listed as a resume reference here, but I do see this person was employed for you for a period of 6 years or a period of 6 months. And I just wanted to get your feedback on what this employee was like. I have phoned a clinic versus the phone number that was provided because they were different and that employee had never worked there. So from personal experience, this is extremely important. I've had employers reach out to me after hiring one of my staff that had worked for me in the past, and they reached out, 6 months to a year after this employee was hired and said, hey, did you run into any of these issues? And at that point, I can't give a reference to somebody who already is employed for you, and you're going to have to kind of sort that one out. But you want to be proactive in making sure that you're investing your time. We all know that training and hiring is costly, and turnover for the clinic is, again, timely and costly. So we want to make sure we're hiring the right people, and it's not hiring out of desperation. It's making sure that we're hiring those right fits, making sure that they're onboarded appropriately, and making sure that we're doing our due diligence with reference checks. Also, another standard can be making sure that you have a police check, a criminal record check from your employees to make sure that there's no past behavior from that regard. My husband was a part of a group. They actually hired somebody who was actually noted by one of the patients to be somebody they recognized from the news, and had sent over some of the news articles to say, I believe that this is somebody under a false name that's working at your clinic, and they were correct. So there is definitely a reason to be checking references and to be making sure that we're doing our due diligence to protect ourselves and our businesses, and also making sure that our employees are aware that we're protecting them. So if somebody is hesitant to provide any sort of criminal reference check, that would be a red flag. And also, of course, to me, I would say the biggest thing in calling references is A, call them, and B, make sure when you phone them, you're calling the actual clinic phone number, asking for the manager. I don't always just say, is so-and-so available? I'll say the manager or the owner. I'm calling for a reference check from a past employee. You may have to leave your name and phone number and have them contact you back, but that would be the way I would go about doing references. Don't just take people's word for who they have on their resume, because we know they're putting a reference on there that's probably going to be all sunshine and rainbows, and we want to make sure that that is exactly what we're getting when we are hiring. So from that principle, of course, making sure that if we are calling references that are not listed, you are mentioning you are not listed as a reference. I'm calling on behalf of myself to make sure that, I have all my information about this employee and what was your experience with working with them. The other thing that I would mention definitely with hiring is making sure that when you're onboarding these people, we're doing a 3-month probationary period. And I think that this is so standardized now that people forget what the 3-month probationary period is. We need to have check marks and we need to have an onboarding process that makes sure 3 months goes by so fast, and it sounds like it doesn't go fast, but time goes so quickly, and suddenly the 3-month mark is up and it's time for the review and to figure out if this person is a long-term fit. And maybe we didn't ask all the thorough questions, or we didn't have them engage in the clinic the way that we needed to see, or maybe we weren't monitoring if the dots were being dotted and the T's were being, or the I's were being dotted and the T's were being crossed. So it's extremely important to make sure that when we're bringing people on, we're utilizing that 3-month probationary period to get to know them, but also for them to get to know us, and that we're having engaging conversations throughout that 3-month process. And if it's not you directly, it needs to be a team member, a trusted team member that is bringing back that information. So you're aware of exactly how that employee is feeling, maybe some of the areas that they're struggling in. I usually have a checklist of things that I'd like them to accomplish before that 3 month. I sit down and have a engaged session with them to find out the areas that they're thriving in, the areas that they're really enjoying, maybe some of the areas that they're struggling in, and I can get them additional training. And I'm already planting those seeds that this is a really positive and fostering environment, that if you need something, you can ask and those resources will be available. And then it's also allowing a time period to find out if the personality fit is great for the office. So, it's an easy time period for people to kind of be who they want to be. They can show up every day, and then after the 3 months be unreliable. They can tell you all the things that you want to hear, but it's still long enough that usually if there's going to be some of those issues, they're starting to kind of show a little bit throughout the timeline with either through your employees and what the employee engagement is, or it's going to be with them calling in sick or being unreliable. That probably will be shown in the 3 months. So utilizing that 3-month probationary period appropriately, and making sure that you understand, like, this is a mutual agreement. So nobody has the upper hand coming into an interview. Nobody has, or should have ill intentions of feeling that they're superior. I'm never hiring out of desperation. So if somebody ever came in and had the assumption that I need them to work for my clinic, that is false pretense and not correct. And those people usually kind of show that right off the bat. And that may not be the right fit for my clinic because we're such a team dynamic group. Everybody really is engaged in the way that the office runs, operates, and they are engaged in the success of the practice. So those would really be my top 3 things to be making sure. So number 1, of course, asking those questions, making sure that they have goals that they want to achieve, that helps you understand what that aligns with your business. Those are going to be different for everybody. Every business is different. Every office owner has their own individual goals. So making sure that they align with your clinic's needs, desires. And again, if they don't, and some people just say that's a really hard question, I've never thought about it. That gives you an indication on whether this is somebody who does set those future forward goals and how much training and help will be needed. We definitely do a lot of goal setting as a team. So in those circumstances, like I said, I know that first 3 months, I really have to onboard this person to understand, here's the goals that we have for the clinic, here's our vision, here's our why. This is exactly what we want to be able to engage with them in that 3 months to see if they're a really strong fit. 9 out of 10 times they are. It's just figuring out how to motivate them, because you're not really understanding what their motivations are right off the start. And sometimes I'll engage in more questions. I might ask, like, is there something that you're specifically interested in? Is there a goal in your life that you're looking for. You know, do you want to buy a house? Are you looking to, build a piece of or build a house on a property? Like sometimes those goals can be really aligned with their personal goals, which tend to be, buying a car, buying a house, starting a family, those types of things. Or it could be somebody who just is really looking for a long-term fit and they want to be in one place. Those are amazing. You automatically know that those people are going to be that long-term person in the practice versus a placeholder, or ideally. That's, of course, always everybody's goal, is to find somewhere that they're feeling confident and comfortable and don't want to leave. So the big thing is you don't want a lot of turnover for your patients and for yourself and your practice and your team members. So utilizing some of those in-depth questions to find out who they are and if that alignment with your business is with that individual person is definitely key. The second thing, again, making sure we're checking the references, doing our due diligence, criminal reference checks, and of course, number 3, utilizing that 3-month probationary period appropriately. So one of the stories I could say from my past experience is holding on to people for too long. So I've definitely had people that I have had a strong attachment to, my heart, I just really enjoyed their company. I felt like they were really good people, but they did not vibe with my team. And this is where it becomes really hard as an owner, because we have to always kind of come from a place of what's best for the practice, what's best for the clinic, ultimately is what's best for the team. And I had dynamic and conversation with the team and expressed why I was giving these times of encouragement and a little bit lenience. And, as much as the team respected that and said, we'll go along with what ends up being ultimately the end decision, is always going to be what that person is kind of showing. And I could have made those decisions a lot earlier. It could have caused a lot less stress and headache for my team members. Also, I could have onboarded somebody sooner that was the right fit. So those are kind of things that we need to know as owners to make sure that we're making those quick decisions. And the hiring process doesn't need to be tedious if we have a lot of simple, streamlined systems for onboarding, and especially making sure we're choosing the right fit. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a scenario that this employee needs to be somebody who has worked in the dental field before. We can get creative. Of course, like a hygienist, they need to have their certification to be able to be a hygienist or a dentist. But, there are opportunities for assistants that they do not need to be registered. There's definitely a need for registered level 2s, as we all know, but we can get creative in what a level 1 looks like and what they can help within the clinic dynamics to make the level 2's job easier and to be able to help them and almost assist your assistant. So these are things that we can kind of look at to make your office more efficient and streamlined in the hiring process, and making sure that we're really picking out personality and the dynamic of the office versus qualifications and credentials. Some of my best employees have had no dental experience at all, and I've been able to train them. And you can almost mold them into what your clinic's needs specifically are. I run a very large clinic with my partner, and our practice is not a normal dental dynamic. So for somebody to come in from a smaller practice and really kind of have in the works of what they're used to, it might not actually be the proper fit for my clinic. So sometimes hiring out people and training them and molding them to my specific need and niche is exactly what I end up having success in. So I hope that this helps. If this helped you and you feel like this would be beneficial to share with a family, friend, or colleague, please send along the podcast details and connect with me on Instagram at Caroline Bell-Mintern. Or you can always reach out to me through my website, www.carolinebellmintern.com. I offer lots of consulting, different tips and tricks through ownership and entrepreneurship. Not everything's listed on my website. I can create individual programs for specific needs and interests. So if there's anything that you want to have help with or want to look at, feel free to reach out. There's never any obligations. I love just connecting with my dental fam, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week. Thanks so much for being here. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Dentistry to Business. If today's episode sparked an idea or inspired you, don't forget to share with your team or fellow dental leader. Let's keep elevating the business of dentistry together. For more insights, resources, and updates, follow me on Instagram at Caroline Bell-Mintern and contact me and find my services at www.carolinebellmintern.com. That's www.carolinebellmintern.com. Until next time, keep leading with data and driving your practice forward. Bye.